Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So, the United States saw highest number of mass killings on record in 2019, database reveals. What does this actually reveal? Well, it just reveals the BBC's agenda when it doesn't understand the gun culture in America, or what guns mean for individual freedom, because the BBC is, of course, a government-legislated, state-funded propaganda machine, and therefore they don't give a shit about individual liberty, and this is a primary example of that. So, without further ado, let's get into their propaganda that they wish to spew out to try and persuade people who don't know anything at all because they're fucking liars. So, let the fake news begin. A database compiled by the Associated Press, USA Today, and Northeastern University recorded 41 incidents and a total of 211 deaths. They wish to define a mass killing as 4 or more people being killed in the same incident, excluding the perpetrator. So, if we wish to address the elephant in the room, then of course we're going to mention how it is black on black crime, how it's gang related, and how drugs are always involved. But no, of course we're not going to fucking mention any of that. We're just going to mention the ones that we wish to publish more so, and therefore we're going to mention the ones which are perpetrated by white people. We're not going to try to mention the underlying problems at all. No, instead we're going to say how, if we remove your freedoms, that is clearly going to create a better society. People are going to like each other more, everybody's going to be more polite, and we're all going to be more happy when we can't do anything. Isn't that clearly the solution? I mean, clearly, when there's any problem whatsoever, we should reduce your freedoms. As I mentioned yesterday, to do with France, and they're saying, we've got to be able to access your social media because you might be avoiding tax. It's like, well, how about you fuck off? And if you wish to go through the incidents of gun crime, then how about you decide to mention that between 500,000 and 3 million incidents per year are all self-defense? Yes, crimes are avoided because of people using their guns in a self-defense manner. If you want to mention how the gun is the great equalizer, then you might wish to think, how about young or old, or in any way vulnerable, particularly women, are having a lack of defense unless they have access to a weapon, in which case then finally they are just as equal as their attacker. And if you wish to have statistics to back this up, for a woman who a man attempts to rape, if she is unarmed, he is successful 43% of the time. So just under half, so basically 1 in 2. If he tries to rape her, he'll get away with it 1 in 2. Rape being a particularly heinous crime, why would we allow any man to get away with this at all? If she does have a weapon, it's not like half, it's not like 20% of the time, it's not 10% of the time, it's not 1% of the time, it's 0.09% of the time. That's 450 times less. If she has a gun. That's what we mean by great equalizer. I don't mean that she has to use it, but it is bloody effective. And you can look at Kentucky or Florida, if you're looking at the rates of which home invasions decrease when it's published that homeowners own guns, or rapes decrease when it's notified that women have guns and know how to use them. It is the great equalizer. The police cannot be there all the time. That is why the individuals must be able to protect themselves. And seeing as muscle mass is different, because hey, men and women are different, there are biological differences between men and women, and I don't care for what you have to say opposite because you are wrong, then yes, having a gun makes an amazing difference. It's a shame I live in the United Kingdom because I would love for my girlfriend to have a gun. That would make me feel a lot safer and herself as well. Instead of that, we have to have self-defense cases, and examples, and courses, and training, and hope that we're able to muscle our way out of it and use the technique after years of training, instead of a couple of hours during a training course for a gun. That is a huge difference. And how many people do you think can spare a few years in order to become proficient in a martial art? It's ridiculous. And yet, instead of saying how it's great for freedom, they wish to say, people are killed, and we're going to ignore the fact that so much of it is done on black crime, and it's drugs and gang related, because the families don't have a father figure. But instead of focusing on how they don't have a positive role model, let's just say that guns are bad, and then also say how men are evil because of toxic masculinity, and not address the elephant in the room. At this point, surely the BBC must be fucking evil. So they've been tracking mass killings in the US, and they even have a little video to say how lethal particular guns are. And here, you might mention that they have an AK-47 here, and you might think, fucking hell, That's an automatic gun. That's not legal in the US. I mean, Jesus Christ, that's hundreds of rounds per minute, and that's used all around the world, and it's used in deserts because it's spring loaded, and it's so much easier to reload and to maintain them, more importantly, because there's less of stuff to go wrong. It's a very reliable gun. I mean, it's not accurate at all, but hey, it's very reliable. That can't be legal in the US. And to which I say, no, of course it isn't. And so when they say up to 120 shots per minute, up from 80 for a handgun, it's like, well, hang on a minute, aren't they both semi-automatic? Like, well, yes, they are. So, okay, right. So, as in, they fire as quickly as you pull the trigger. Yes, they do. Then why are they different in the amount of shots you can do per minute? So, we're just biased cunts. It's like, yeah, you are, aren't you, BBC? What the fuck are you doing? Why would you lie so blatantly? And why would you have such a fucking large banana clip in the AK-47 when you know that you're not allowed to fill it? So what the fuck are you on about? Why are you so blatantly lying to people when it is so obvious? Then they go on to the Armalite 15, the AR-15, because we all know that it's not Armalite, is it? It stands for assault rifle, clearly, yeah. Oh, and it must be the M16. They mentioned, oh, it's a military variant. So, no, it isn't, though, is it? It's never been used by the military, not even once. It's not a military weapon whatsoever. And it's because you use metal instead of wood. Oh, now it seems dangerous. And then you mentioned bump stocks, and oh, you can't use bump stocks. It's like, oh, what about if you just use a belt around it instead, which has the same result? It's like, well, we didn't think of that, or maybe we did, but we don't want to tell you, because you're fucking liars. Okay, fine, in which case, automatic guns can't be used because they're the most deadly. So, as in the ones that you can't fire accurately because the recoil is too much and you can't predict where it's going to go? Yeah, those. Oh, right, well, that's kind of just debunked your point entirely, hasn't it? What do you think the M16A3s or A4s, I'm not sure now, why do you think they're burst fire, as in they fire 3 rounds per one trigger pull? It's because that's more accurate. That is the more effective way to do it, if you wish to take out a target. So, I think at this point, it just proves that you don't know what you're talking about, and I don't see why the BBC even tried to get involved. Why do you try to push an agenda when you've no fucking clue what you're talking about? Surely, like, how can the BBC be so far behind on the Dunning-Kruger effect, whereby they're right at the beginning of the curve, where they think, oh, we know everything about this. It's like, how can you not at least progress a little bit, where you start to think, oh, maybe we don't know much about it? Surely, I mean, you should be at the trough already. You know, the Dunning-Kruger effect, where you start off, you don't really know anything, but then very quickly you think, oh yeah, I know everything about this. And then you learn a bit more and realise that you know nothing about it. Then you progress a bit more and you slowly increase your confidence with your competence back up until eventually, hopefully, you are good and you realise that you're good. But to begin with, where you think you're good but you're fucking awful, that seems to be where the BBC is with gun ownership. So, they mention about, oh, well, we should clearly have more legislation to ban guns. It's like, oh, okay, cool. How many of your mass shootings were legal? Oh, none of them. Right. And how many could have been averted if the laws that you currently had were enforced? Oh, all of them. Right. So how would more laws prevent this from happening? Oh, they wouldn't at all. They would just impede on the freedoms of the law-abiding citizens. Oh, I see. What's the point in impeding on the rights of the law-abiding citizens? Oh, so when you enact a completely tyrannical government, then you won't have any pushback, just like every tyrannical government in history, which has started by banning firearms and self-defense. Oh, I see. It almost seems like you're evil, again, doesn't it? I'm going to go out on a whim here, but say, you're evil. So they've called for the banning of bump stocks, and as I say, that's basically like a belt. Do you simply pull it towards your shoulder, give it a bit of push, and then your finger will pull the trigger, because then it is still semi-automatic, because your finger is pulling the trigger, but then you're able to create a much higher rate of fire, because of that recoil then pushing your finger to it. So here we have a solitary vigil in memory of victims of a Las Vegas mass shooting. Yeah, I wonder which one. Is it the one where men were jumping on their female partners in order to protect their lives? That must be toxic masculinity, sacrificing your life to save your partner. Oh yeah. Oh, you're not going to mention that at all, are you, BBC? No, because white men are clearly evil, you utter cunts. So, obviously, all the Democrats want tighter gun regulations, even though that the regulations they have at the moment would have stopped the shootings that have happened, but they just haven't been enforced and they haven't worked properly. But hey, clearly these ones that haven't worked because they haven't been enforced. If we were to put in more gun regulations, then they clearly would be enforced and we'd be fine. Let alone in the UK, that the gun crimes have been increasing exponentially over the past few years. So, no, wait, hang on. Guns are illegal, yet people find a way to get them. But, hang on. How can people find guns if it's illegal? How can anyone do anything that's illegal? How can criminals obtain illegal weapons? Oh my god, people are doing illegal things. What a surprise. So Elizabeth Warren, who outlined plans earlier this year to reduce gun deaths by 80%. Wow. Obviously 2/3 of them are suicide, so if you just decide to try and help out people instead of stop their freedom, then you could reduce it by 2/3 straight away. With a mixture of legislation and executive action, which is basically her just being a dictator, saying, I'm in charge now, this is the law now, which doesn't work, because then you get another president afterwards who just undoes all that, which is what Donald Trump did. We're like, oh my god, he's doing this by executive action, how can he do this, he's a dictator. It's like, yeah, are you seeing what he's doing? He's just undoing all the executive actions that Barack Obama took when he was acting as dictator. It's like, oh, Donald Trump, it almost seems as if he prefers freedom. Isn't that a breath of fresh air? But Ms. Warren has also called for stronger background checks, more red flag laws, saying that if you can't buy a gun, you can't fly. Brilliant. Saying you just put them on stupid reasons. And also that if somebody calls up saying, hey, I'm concerned about this person, they now shouldn't get a gun. So, oh yeah, we'll definitely go along with that. Why not, anonymous source, who just has a vendetta against this person, will remove their freedoms just so you feel better. Or feel vindicated. As well as the ability to revoke licenses for gun dealers who break the law. Well, yeah, that's really the case. That very much makes sense. But Biden plans include a ban on the manufacture and sale of assault weapons. Oh my god, assault weapons. They must be terrible. So, any rifle that has 2 or more modifications. Is that what you mean when Clinton passed it? Which had absolutely no effect on gun deaths. That one? Yeah. Right. So it sounds nice, but does nothing. I think that's the Democrats on a good day. At least it does nothing. At least it's not a negative if it does nothing. So, hey, they've got that going for them. And mandatory background checks for all gun sales. Yes! Which is exactly like they do now. Oh, shit, hang on. Oh, so what he says sounds good but does nothing at best. And just removes people's freedoms and ability to defend themselves at worst. Huh. I wonder why the state-run BBC are supporting such policies that would remove people's freedoms and leave them vulnerable to government intervention. Why would the BBC be backing socialist agendas that form a gun registry and then disallow you from obtaining them so that they can then take you at their own will? Let's say, for example, and this might be a few decades old, that they decide to create a gun registry. They know who has guns, they then decide to confiscate the guns because they know who has them, and then they decide to take away the people who don't agree with them, and then force them to work in camps at particular concentrations, and then maybe kill them. So, I think this is the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany in the 1930s and 40s. Yeah, this is that socialist idea of banning guns. I mean, apparently they're a right-wing party, even though everything about them is socialist, just like their name being the National Socialist Workers' Party of Germany. But nonetheless, that's what the BBC wish to support. So, if you want to call everybody Nazis, BBC, maybe take a strong, hard look in the mirror, because you're fucking hypocritical liars, and you wish to bring about the destruction of society, whether you realise it or not. If you want to be the ones about learning from history and calling each other Nazis, then maybe take a look at what you're doing now.